السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبعد. So tonight inshallah we're starting a new series. This time we'll take another 40 hadith, 40 recurrent hadiths. This is also a booklet by Sheikh Alhamzawe. We're going to mention this now, but the main difference is that during this series, inshallah, we're not going to take as long as we used to take in the 40 hadith. It will be shorter. Inshallah, the intention is that every time we finish 3 to 4 hadiths and finish them 10, 12 weeks, like before the winter breaks, inshallah. Okay, so first of all, what is a recurrent hadith? What is a hadith mutawatir? We call a hadith mutawatir or recurrent or proven by recurrent testimony or recurrent narrations. This is a hadith that was narrated by a large number of narrators on each level of the chain of narration. Like, let's say 25 of the companions heard it from the Prophet ﷺ, and then maybe 30 of the followers heard it from those 25 companions, and from the tabi'in, the followers of the followers, same number, maybe 70 heard it of those 25 from the followers, and so on. And of course, at the end they say something that we saw, we heard, something that is tangible, something that they can, not that we understood, no, something that they actually saw or heard or tasted or something like that. And the importance of this kind of hadith is that it leads to being sure and certain that the Prophet ﷺ said that. Now, with this big number of narrators on every level of this chain of narration, it means that we say 100% the Prophet ﷺ said that. There is no place for error now. You know, generally speaking, when we talk about hadith, we know that there are authentic hadith, but those authentic hadiths are not on the same level, right? We might be sure 99%, 98%. Some of those hadiths we are sure like 70% that the Prophet ﷺ said that. For those mutawatir hadith, we are sure 100% that the Prophet ﷺ said that. Of course, the scholars had a discussion of different opinions. So what is the minimum number of narrators? Like, is 4 enough? Like, are 4 enough on every level? Is it 5? Is it 7? Is it 12? Is it 40? Is it 100? Like, what is the number? What is the minimum number of narrators or the people who report the hadith on each level? And the most correct opinion is that it differs from one chain of narration to another. Like sometimes some of those who are the narrators are all imams, are all big imams. You are more confident in what they report, even if they're only 7 or 8 or 10, than maybe 7 or 8 or 10 who are not as competent or as knowledgeable, right? And there is no fixed number to say, okay, this is a mutawatir hadith now. Rather, the main condition is that when those narrators that we're talking, those people who are reporting hadith, collectively, they lead to this certainty. Like, they reach an extent that we say, yeah, this cannot be wrong. Okay? From our Mashaykh who mentioned a very nice example. Like, you know that 1 grain of rice will not make you feel full, right? 1 grain, 2 grains, you know that they're going to make you full. But how many grains of rice? You can't tell me, right? You know that maybe this much, but how many grains? You know when you are full. Similarly, you know that this became mutawatir when this happens, when you know that now it's certainty. They cannot be wrong, right? Number differs from chain of narration to chain of narration, depending on the narrators themselves. The other thing that is important about the Mutawatir hadith or recurrent hadith is that we actually have two kinds, or there are two kinds of recurrent narrations. One of them is recurrent verbal narrations, which means that maybe 70 of the Sahaba, 70 of the companions report the same hadith by the same wording. Okay? And one of the main examples of this is the من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever lies upon me intentionally, then let him, get ready for his seat and the hellfire. And we're going to mention how many of the Sahaba narrated this. And this is actually one of the most clear hadiths. Like is that? Good, alhamdulillah. Okay, can you hear me better now? Okay, so we said that first of all there is something that we call Mutawatir lafzi, like verbal recurrent or recurrent verbal narration, which we said that all the narrators, all the companions reported the same hadith by the same wording, like word to word, word by word. And this, of course, is stronger than the other type. The other type, which we call recurrent thematic, or when this meaning is recurrent, but not the same wording. For example, we know for sure that the Prophet ﷺ used to raise his hand in making dua, right? This was narrated maybe 70 hadith, but 70 unrelated hadith. This is a common part in those hadith. Like this meaning, this thing was repeated in those hadith, but it's not the same incident, it's not the same hadith, but this was something common between this big number of hadith. So now we say that this part or this amount, we are sure about it, even if it's not repeat. Like we say, we know that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu was very courageous, right? But this is from many incidents that were reported, right? So we know this. We know this knowledge because this was recurrent, but by theme, not by word, not verbal. Okay. When we said that the scholars had this, dispute or discussion, what is the minimum number of narrators to consider a hadith, a recurrent hadith? This leads that some hadith would be disputable. Some scholars would say that this is a recurrent hadith, this is a hadith mutawatir. Some scholars would say no, we don't agree to that, right? Because, for example, let's say it's 10 narrators. And those who consider 4 or 5 or 10 enough will say yes, we consider this a mutawatir hadith. Others will tell them no, we need at least 20, we need at least 12, we need at least whatever, right? So this is one of the main reasons that scholars might have different opinions about whether this hadith is mutawatir or not. Okay? The other thing, or the other reason about why they might not consider a hadith or a meaning a mutawatir, that we have this common meaning that happened in a lot of hadith. They say, yeah, we know that this was repeated, but it was not repeated enough for us to be certain 100% about it, right? And this actually, like point of view, some scholars say no, it was repeated enough that we are satisfied with this repetitions and we consider this a certainty. And others say no, it was repeated, yeah, but not that much.
In the books of Hadith, we have, say, in one book of Hadith it's Mutawatir, in other books it's Sahih.
I'm going to mention that. Okay, so why I'm saying this, because there is a main there's a ruling about the Mutawatir hadith. You cannot reject a Mutawatir hadith. Generally speaking, rejecting a Mutawatir hadith is disbelief, because we know that the Prophet ﷺ said it 100%. So you cannot reject it, you cannot deny it, right? But some, as we said, some scholars might have different opinions about a specific hadith, whether it's actually mutawatir or not. Then we're not talking about this hadith, right? Of course, we're not talking, when we say that whoever rejects a mutawatir hadith is a kafir, then this is when the hadith is mutawatir without any dispute. Nobody argues about that. Okay? We said the example for about the thematic recurrent, like Mutawatir al-Manawi, raising hands in dua, and this was narrated in about 100 different hadiths. And we said about the example for the wordly or Mutawatir lafzi, which is recurrent verbal, من كذب علي متعمدا. Since those hadiths are important, like imagine if you find like 70 of the Sahaba reporting a certain hadith, this means that the Prophet ﷺ gave this matter great attention, or he made it very clear for them. He repeated them, maybe repeated more, once or twice, or Allah A'lam how many times. Or he said that in a big gathering, that all of those who were at the gathering narrated it afterwards, right? So the Prophet ﷺ gave this big importance, and the Sahaba, the companions after him, gave it big importance too, and narrated this, and reported this about the Prophet ﷺ, right? So this tells you how important this is, right? Like imagine, some hadiths are just have one narration, one chain of narration, or two chain of narrations, right? This, even though it's important, we'll not say it's not important, but another topic that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned many times, that this much of the Sahaba are reporting it, they know that the Prophet ﷺ was emphasizing on that matter more and more. Like this hadith that we just mentioned now, من كذب علي متعمدا, whoever lies upon me intentionally, right? This was to make it clear. Why? Because when you say that the Prophet ﷺ said that, now you're making a ruling. Now you're fixing a ruling for this nation. So you cannot lie, right? You cannot lie about the Prophet ﷺ. And as you see, this is the concept, right? Because if we know that if people start, casually lying about the Prophet or upon the Prophet ﷺ, then there is no trust about these narrations, right? Then if there is no trust about this narration, then we're losing this important part, or this big important part of the religion, of the revelation, right? So now we need to safeguard this. Then the Prophet ﷺ told us, no, you cannot lie about me, you cannot lie upon me, right? And this is actually one of maybe the first hadith of the 40, and we're going to discuss it more. Anyways, the scholars gave this topic great care, and compiled some books on that matter. Like those Mutawatir hadith are found in, you'll find them in Bukhari, you'll find them in Muslim, you'll find them in the Sunan, you'll find them in Musnad, you'll find them in the books. But it doesn't mean that every compiler said, okay, this one of the Mutawatir hadith. No, it's a Sahih hadith. And then when we know, afterwards when we find this amount of chain of narrations, or this amount of narrations, we say, and it's actually not only authentic, it's actually up one level, and it is Mutawatir. Imam Seyouti rahimahullah ta'ala compiled two books about the Mutawatir hadith. The first one name is الفوائد المتكاثرة في الأخبار المتواترة. And he had a criteria when he was compiling this book. He said, okay, I'm not going to include a hadith with less than 10 narrators. Like if the hadith was reported by 10 Sahaba or more, I'm going to include it. Less than that, I'm not going to include it. And this was his criteria for that book. Then he actually mentioned all the chain of narrations. Like the chains of narrations, he mentioned them in the book. So you can imagine it became a huge book. Like, if he's going to mention hadith, and then for every hadith he's going to maybe mention 40 or 60 chain of narrations, this would be very big. So he found that it would be more beneficial if he just omits that and summarized the book. So he omitted the chain of narrations and summarized this book in his second book, قطف الأزهار المتناثرة في الأخبار المتواترة. Then he, as I said, summarized this book and removed the chain of narration, but only mentioned who narrated this or who reported this hadith. And he collected 113 hadith. He would like the number of hadith that he found following his criteria, like at least 10 narrators or 10 of the companions reporting it. He found, or he collected 113 hadith. Then الشيخ الكتاني رحمه الله تعالى أبو عبد الله محمد بن جعفر الكتاني الإدريسي, and he died at 1205 after Hijrah, and he compiled a book نظم المتناثر في الحديث المتواتر, and included 310 hadiths. Also other scholars compiled books like Shamsuddin al-Salihi ibn Turun, Shamsuddin Muhammad ibn Turun al-Dimashq al-Salihi, he died 953 after Hijrah. Abu al-Fayd Muhammad Murtada al-Zabiri al-Husayni, he died 1205 after Hijrah too. Siddiq Hassan Khan al-Qannuji al-Bukhari died 1307 after Hijrah. Yeah, like he's not that far away, right? Like about 150 years-ish. Okay, so this is some of the books that the scholars compiled about this topic. Sheikh Alhamzawe rahimahullah ta'ala, Sheikh Muhammad Mahmud Hamza, and he was known for Alhamzawe. He was the Mufti of Damascus. He was born 1236 after Hijrah, which corresponds to 1821, and died 1305 after Hijrah, which corresponds to 1887. He was the Mufti of Damascus and one of its most famous scholars. He remained the Mufti of Damascus for 22 years and some months, like more than 22 years, till he died. He was a Hanafi. He followed the Hanafi school of thought, or school of knowledge, and he was actually a famous Mufti that questions came from him from a lot of countries, even from Europe. He received the question and responded to it. It's also mentioned that he is from the lineage of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, as if you go to his chain of nasab, his bloodline, at the end of it is Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, then Muhammad al-Baqir, then Ali Zayn al-Abidin, then Imam al-Husayn ibn Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Sheikh Alhamzawe rahimahullah ta'ala selected 40 hadiths that the scholar mentioned that they are mutawatir. And he said, I did that to be among those who preserved 40 hadith for this nation, and so I could gain intercession on the day of judgment or in the hereafter. He selected those hadiths from a book by the name of Al-Jami' al-Saghir, like the small compilation of hadith by Imam Seyouti. Okay? Imam Seyouti rahimahullah ta'ala was an encyclopedic scholar. We're going to come to his biography now. And he actually had a lot of books. Like he was, the amount of production that he produced regarding compiling and being an author or collecting is huge. So anyways, Imam Alhamzawe rahimahullah ta'ala, or Sheikh Alhamzawe rahimahullah ta'ala, compiled those 40 hadith from this Jami' al-Saghir, and we said, as he mentioned here, I did that to be among those who preserved 40 hadith for the nation, so I gain intercession in the hereafter. This was mentioned in the introduction of the 40 hadith, that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned that a lot of scholars compiled 40 hadith because there are some hadith encouraging to preserve 40 hadith, and they said that those all hadith are not have their weakness, and But on the other hand, the matter of preserving hadith or reporting hadith or delivering it or telling it to other to people and teaching it is something that is well known in the other hadith, like the hadith of نضر الله امرأ سمع مقالتي فوعاها فأداها كما سمعها فرب مبلغ أوعى من سامع. Like, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten or make it fair the face of a person who would hear what I say and memorize it or preserve it and then deliver it to others, so he might that person that he is delivering it to might be even more knowledgeable and would understand from this hadith more than this person did. So Imam السيوطي رحمه الله تعالى, and this is a big scholar, his name is عبد الرحمن ابن أبي بكر ابن محمد الخضيري السيوطي. Okay, Seyouti and Seyouti is the same thing. It's just means someone from Asyut. Asyut is a city in Egypt, okay, in northern Egypt, in Upper Egypt, which is, for the confusion, Upper Egypt is in south, and so because the Nile flows downwards towards the Mediterranean. So when you say Upper Egypt, it's actually the south, not the north. And Khudayri is from the Khudayriyah, and this a place in Baghdad. So one of his great grandfathers was from the east. His nickname was Jalaluddin, and his kunya was Abu al-Fadl. He was born on 849 after Hijrah, and his father was also a scholar. And from the nice stories about him, about Imam Seyouti rahimahullah, that his father needed a book from his library, and he asked his wife to bring it to him. So the wife got between the books, and at that time she went into labor. So she gave birth for Seyouti rahimahullah ta'ala between the books. So his family called him this is the son of books. Then his father rahimahullah ta'ala died when he was 5 years old, and Seyouti rahimahullah ta'ala became very active in seeking knowledge. He memorized the Quran before being 8 years old, then memorized some other books, and he had many teachers, but also gave great attention to reading and researching. It was not only would just go and listen from the teachers. No, he would also start reading, comparing, researching, and so on. And he traveled to seek knowledge to many places inside Egypt and outside Egypt. He went to many places in Egypt. Then he went to Sham, he went to Yemen, he went to India, he went to Morocco, he went to West Africa, he went to Hijaz, and went to Hijaz. That being said, and being that high ranking in knowledge, he didn't have many public positions other than teaching and ifta. He was a teacher, and he was assigned ifta for a while, but he was not like a judge, right? It was only ifta and teaching, and he was incomparable when it comes to how fast he wrote and compiled.
What does ifta mean?
Answering questions, like a mufti, being a mufti. He became competent in a lot of branches of knowledge, to name some, like tafsir, hadith, fiqh, Arabic grammar, and linguistics. And he said about himself that he memorizes 200,000 hadith. And he said, if I found more, I would memorize it, but this is what I found. And when he reached at the age of 40, he secluded himself from people and the worldly matters in his biography, as if he didn't know any of those people. He just stayed at his house, just focusing on worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and editing his books and compilations. He even retired from ifta and teaching, and even to apologize about that and say why he actually compiled the book about this matter, why he stopped being a mufti and why he stopped teaching people. He lived in his house on the island of Rawda. Today it's inside Cairo, but it's close by. It's like an island inside the Nile, and it's close to Cairo. If it's not talking about today's if not looking at it today, it's like maybe in the heart of Cairo. Now, but before it was just an island in the Nile, close to Cairo. And he lived there till he died, from his 40 years old till 61. And during that time, he never opened the windows towards the Nile. He didn't have to do anything with this world matter. Like he didn't open the window just to contemplate or just rest and have go looking to the Nile. He didn't even do that. Governors, governors, rich people used to visit him and try to give him like expensive presents and money and things like that, and he would always turn them down. Except when one time the Sultan sent him a eunuch and 1,000 dinars. You know what a eunuch is? Khasi, that person who a slave without testicles. Okay, and there was something that was traded, like some slaves without that they would just chop their testicles or even their organ and then just use them to do whatever, and they can go anywhere because there's no harm from them. Anyways, the Sultan sent him this eunuch and
What's the word for
khasi, and sent him this eunuch and 1,000 dinars. He accepted this eunuch, set him free, and sent him as a servant at the prophetic room for the Prophet ﷺ. Sent him to Medina, served there, and set him free. And he returned the 1,000 dinars and told the messenger from the Sultan, okay, do not come back with any presents. We're not going to accept it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sustained us and gave us and gave us enough that we're not in need for those presents, so not come back with any presents. He didn't visit the sultans or any other people. The Sultan himself tried to summon him many times and he didn't just respond. He didn't attend. Some people saw the Prophet ﷺ in his dream, and that the Prophet is there, and the Seyouti is asking him about some of the hadith, and the Prophet ﷺ is telling him, ask or say what you got, O Shaykh of Sunnah. Like, I don't remember the Arabic word, like, had ma indaka Shaykh al-Sunnah or something like that. Even he himself saw the same dream, rahmallah ta'ala. And now, then the story is nice. Now there come the problems. He claimed for himself that he collected or he fulfilled all the conditions for being a mujtahid, and this put him in problems with others. Other scholars told him, no, we do not accept that. You are not a mujtahid. And then there was some arguments back and forth and so and whatnot. Again, he died rahmah ta'ala, and they died rahmah ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rules between them. But what we know about Imam Seyouti rahmah ta'ala, that was really knowledgeable in all those branches of knowledge that he claimed that he was knowledgeable about. And his books are there, his compilations are available, we see them, we know them, right? Imam al-Shawkani rahmah ta'ala defended him when he mentioned his biography.
What does mujtahid?
Mujtahid means that he doesn't need to depend on any other scholar. Like, remember, when we said that scholars, that in general speaking, scholars are either mujtahid or not mujtahid, or partial mujtahid, right? Mujtahids are like who? Like Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Sufyan al-Thawri, and so on. Not all scholars reach this rank, because when you reach this rank, you are just like, you are not even allowed to imitate someone else. Like when you are a mujtahid, you can say, okay, what this person said, no. Now you have the tools that you can directly deal with the Quran and Sunnah and follow them directly. You don't need anyone to explain for you. Okay? If you're not mujtahid, you need some explanation, right? You need to follow someone with this chain of knowledge.
Do we have to be strong in hadith?
Of course. Of course.
Oh.
Like Imam Seyouti mentioned.
They say Abu Hanifa was weak in hadith.
No, this is a myth. This is a myth. Imam Abu Hanifa, there is the book Musnad Abi Hanifa, and it's a huge book. A huge book. Even if Ibn Khaldun rahmahullah ta'ala mentioned that in the مقدمة, that he only reported on narrated 70th hadith, no, there's a myth. Actually, it's not like that. Imam Abu Hanifa knew a lot of hadith and narrated a lot. Bismillah.
These are what they said about Imam Seyouti, right? Who did he have problem
He had some problem with Imam al-Sakhawi. He had some problem with Imam al-Qastallani, even though Qastallani after that said, apologized to him, and so, like, there were some scholars together, and they had this,
Did they point to anything specific as to the reason why they consider him not a mujtahid?
No, he told them that I know enough in Nahu. They don't know, you don't know enough in Nahu. And they said, okay, you're saying that you know this, why don't we collect, someone who is, the highest ranking in Nahu, and highest ranking in Tafsir, and highest ranking in Hadith, and let them all, debate you.
Yeah.
So he said, tell them, no, I'm not doing that. It doesn't make any sense, because, even though that he's a mujtahid, like this mujtahid, there is no roof, like there is no end. Meaning to say that yes, when we mention the conditions, those are the minimum requirements, right? But when you say that this person became mujtahid and he's this competent in, for example, hadith, this does mean that he's like Daraqutni. It does mean like his Bukhari. It does mean like he's like Imam Ahmad. No, but he knows enough, right? So if you're going to get those, people who are focused on one branch of knowledge to debate him, of course they'll
never be like him.
Yeah, they'll never be like him, right? But on the other hand, he knows what they don't know on other branches of knowledge, right? Anyways.
Yeah. So some brothers, when they claim they follow only Quran and Sunnah and nothing else. So
This is a myth. At the end of the day, they're following someone, whoever he is, whether it's Imam, a recent Imam, like now someone from nowadays, whether it's someone from before, like a very famous example. Say, okay, we don't follow anyone and we just follow Hadith and we, study Sahih Muslim with the Sharh of Imam Nawawi. At the end of the day, Imam Nawawi is Shafi'i. He has some, selection, or he has some opinions that he is not following the Madhhab al-Shafi'i in. So at the end of the day, you are following Imam al-Nawawi, being a Shafi'i and his own opinion. You didn't do anything, right? Same thing, we're just taking from the Quran Sunnah and we're following Imam al-Shawkani. And we're just studying Nail al-Awtar, the book of Imam al-Shawkani. At the end of the day, you are imitating or you're following Shawkani, right?
And even if you're not like imitating, following anyone, like in terms of the teacher, you're taking the Quran and the Sunnah is categorized Sahih by specific people,
Mhm.
whether it's Albani
Mhm.
or Zubair Ali Zaid or something like that. So you're following their categorization.
Yeah, you're following their categorization. A mujtahid doesn't need that.
Yeah.
And you're following their categorization, and even if a mujtahid would just, know what others said, and he would just reach a final decision by himself, it's not only about the authenticity of the hadith, it's also about the interpretation. Or what does this mean? Or which hadith you use and which one you don't use.
What's the difference between a mujtahid and a muhaddith?
Muhaddith is someone who teaches or studies hadith. There's one branch or one of the conditions or one of the things that a mujtahid needs to know. But a mujtahid knows way more than that. For example, there are many muhaddith who are not faqih. A lot.
Just memorize the moment.
They memorize. And know what? They can tell you this hadith, this was narrated from this number of narrations, and this is the right narration, and this one had this problem, this one had this problem, and so on. And he can tell you a lot of hadith.
So Albani is a mujtahid.
This is another thing. We're not going to talk about that.
You don't like Albani?
No, I'm not talking about that. We're not talking about that.
Okay, but
Okay?
the ones that are categorizing them, they would be considered mujtahid.
Like if you want to know who is a mujtahid, know the condition of mujtahid and see if someone actually had this thing, then he's a mujtahid. If he doesn't have it, like when I tell you, what qualifies as halal meat, it needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4. conditions, right? If those conditions are collected in this person, whoever his name is, then he's a mujtahid. If not, not. Anyways, on the year 961 after Hijrah, Imam Seyouti rahimahullah got sick for 7 days. He had like something like a tumor or swelling on his left arm, which led to his death rahimahullah ta'ala at the age of 61 years, 10 months and 18 days. And his funeral was a big event, like people attended from everywhere, and he was buried close to the Qarafa in Cairo. This is about Imam Seyouti rahimahullah ta'ala. Then Al-Jami' al-Saghir is one of his books. Yeah, I forgot to mention, Imam Seyouti rahimahullah ta'ala, in his own biography, when he was writing his own biography, and this was about 7 years before he died, he said that he compiled 300 books. Other than that, what he, was not satisfied with, so he just, put aside or, or erased or burned or whatever. Okay? Of course, 300 books starting from 2 or 3 papers to 5, 6 volumes. Okay? His students actually counted more than that, because we're talking about 7 years between when he said that and his death. So, depending on what's considered a separate, thing that he wrote, or what is it, added to other things, they have different counting, 500, 600,000. But even if you say 300, that's a lot. And by the way, there were scholars who wrote a lot of books. But since they wrote this much books, their books were still say, the level of a draft. When you write something, then you have a draft, and then you edit it. Some scholars wrote a lot, and their books were at this draft level. There was still work to be done on them. His books are not like that. His books are actually complete. The book of Al-Jami' al-Saghir is one of the Imam Seyouti's books. He collected the short hadith only. He said, okay, I'm going to compile the short hadiths and arrange them in alphabetical order, and use symbols to mention who reported those and the authenticity. Like if you put this letter, know that this is by Bukhari. If you put this letter, know that this is by Tirmidhi. Put this letter, know that this is an authentic hadith. If you put this letter, know that this is a da'if hadith. And this book included 10,000 hadith. 10,000, yeah? The Al-Jami' al-Saghir, yeah. And this book, by the way, Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala had this, did some work on that book, and had this Sahih Al-Jami' al-Saghir and Da'if Al-Jami' al-Saghir. It's very famous. It's maybe everywhere. Before Google and before the internet, this was our go-to. If you want to know who reported hadith, you just go to it. Because, even though I'm telling you 10,000 hadith, but now 10,000 hadith, but its symbols are used, so it's only maybe every hadith is just a line or two, right? So the Sahih and Da'if together are like 3 volumes, and you just go over them. It's as if you're following an index. Anyways,
by alphabetical order.
By alphabetical, yeah.
So you mean the very first letter, first word?
Yeah,
or is that including the isnad? Or
no, the first word, like
first word of the speech.
Yeah, yeah. So if it's alif or alif ba, then alif ta, then alif ta, and so on. Okay. And yeah, this book included 10,031 hadith, as in the explanation of Imam al-Manawi rahimahullah ta'ala to this book. We mentioned that Imam Hamzawe, Sheikh Alhamzawe rahimahullah ta'ala compiled or collected 40 hadith from this book, and his booklet name is Al-Kawakib al-Zahira fil Arba'in al-Mutawatirah, like the shiny planets in the 40 Mutawatir hadith. Okay. Sheikh Alhamzawe rahimahullah ta'ala extracted this from the Jami' al-Saghir, so he arranged them also in alphabetical order, right? Then our Sheikh fil Ijazah, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, when he was giving a guide in this book, he said, no, I find it's a better way to arrange it by topic. So that's what he did. So he rearranged the hadith. First, and he have like 8 chapters. Okay, first chapter was about the Shama'il al-Nabawiyya, about the prophetic attributes, and this include 4 hadith. And then the virtues and people, like the virtues of people and nations, or people or groups of people, and this included from hadith 5 to 9. So those are 5 hadith. And then a chapter about the fada'il wal ujur, like virtues and rewards of the good deeds, and those are another 6 hadith. And then good manners and heart softeners, and those are 5 hadith. And then dua al-dhikr and dhikr, supplication and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 2 hadith. And then al-ahkam al-ibadat, rulings and worship, and this goes from 23 till 34, those are 11 hadith. And then al-jihad wal-ribat, like al-jihad, like fighting the sake of Allah ta'ala, or in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And al-ribat is when you when you are in this place that, in a fortress, expecting that the enemy would attack at any time. And then the last chapter, the signs of the Sa'ah, of signs of hour, which was 1 hadith. The al-jihad wal-ribat is 5 hadith, and then Ashrat al-Sa'ah is 1 hadith. From next time, inshallah, we're going to start the first 4 hadith. Actually, the first 4 hadith might take more than 1 class, but our intention, inshallah, that we're not going to take 2 years in this. Like the 40 hadith will took about 2 years. This is not the case here. Inshallah, we're going to finish before the winter break, inshallah, and move on to another thing. I hope this was, clear and beneficial, and now there's a good introduction. Next time, inshallah, we're going to start, and guess what? Our first hadith will be Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan. It will be our first hadith, inshallah. Okay, any questions?
This question about the Mutawatir, the definition of Mutawatir.
Yeah.
So this is the one that has been repeated several times by
Yeah.
different nations. But other hadith that are created by, say, Abu Huraira or Sayyidah Aisha, they're still, there's a high, I mean, the narrator himself is...
We're not talking about the narrator himself, but let me tell you something. The best, just imagine now the most competent and knowledgeable scholar you know, right? And let him speak for 2 hours. Something would slip, right? Right? So if I hear him, and it's only this, if I'm only reporting about him or just narrating what he said, this thing might slip, might not, right?
Yes.
But if we have 2 saying the same thing,
Right.
it's now stronger, right?
Yes.
And 3 is stronger, and 4 is stronger.
Yeah.
And then when we have like 20 people narrating the same thing on the same way, or by the same way, or by the same words, then there is no mistake here. You know what? The hadith da'if. The hadith da'if is that the narrators were not very sure about their memorization or how competent they are. So we say, okay, we are not sure that the Prophet, or we don't have enough confidence. We don't have enough confidence that the Prophet ﷺ said that.
Right.
Yeah, there is a possibility of 30%, 40%, something like that.
Yeah.
So what happens when 3 or 4 of those people who are normally don't have good memorization and report a hadith on the same way, by the same words?
No, I understand.
You know what? Then what do you say then? Because whoever is thiqa and hafiz and competent might make a mistake, right?
Even
Yeah.
people like
Yeah.
Abu Huraira, is that
Like-
impossible?
Okay, might make a mistake, right? On the other hand, people who are weak in their memorization, they're weak. When they say weak, like when they memorize 10 hadith, they get 3 out of 10, right? When different people of them narrate something similar, then this is from the 3, not from the 6.
Yes.
From the 3 that they actually memorized right.
Right.
Okay? Sahaba radiallahu anhum, ulul, like we accept what they say. Okay? But what happens sometimes that some of the hadith you'll find that one of the Sahaba reports something, And the other Sahaba told him, no, you won't remember right. He said, no, I remember right. I remember correctly. No, you don't. Let's ask the third person and the fourth person. And all of them told him, no, you don't remember right. He said that, not that. It happens, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that's why the scholars of Hadith had this, track this. And no, and then this is what the Sahabi said this, and then you say, okay, they narrated this, but the other Sahabi corrected him about that. And when the Sahabi corrects him, when he gets, and this is one of the virtues of Sahaba, when he gets corrected, he accepts it.
Yes.
He doesn't say, no, I know better than you. When he finds that the other Sahaba told him, no, you did forget, you didn't remember properly, he accepted. Like from the example, like Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, the second best man in the nation, right? He was on an expedition or a task by the Prophet ﷺ, he and Ammar radiallahu anhu. And then they didn't find water to make wudu. So Ammar made tayammum, and Umar radiallahu anhu didn't do it, especially for janaba, right? So Ammar radiallahu anhu just tried to get dust all over his body and prayed, and Umar radiallahu anhu didn't do that. He said, no, I don't find, like I can do tayammum for wudu, but not for ghusl, right? And he did that. And then they go back to the Prophet ﷺ, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, no, it was enough that you make tayammum. And then after that, by so many years, Ammar was reporting this thing. Umar told him, no, this didn't happen. Umar told him, no, it happened and you forgot. This didn't happen. No, it happened and you forgot. What did Umar do? Then, okay, if you're sure enough, I will not stop you from reporting this. And we know that Ammar memorized why? Because this hadith, similar hadith came from other narrations. Right? So we know this. There's something that's known. Of course, but one of the main reasons that why we scholars categorize hadith, which one is the strongest and which one is strong and which one is acceptable. Sometimes you find those hadiths contradict for a reason, right? And if there's a contradiction and we cannot, harmonize between them, then we'll take the strong one.
I guess my question was, is there a category in hadith where it's actually dependent on the narrator? Like someone like, let's say, Abu Hurairah.
No.
It's 100% or no?
No, it depends on the chain of narration.
It has to be narration. Okay.
But the general rule that that Sahaba Ram, all of them are acceptable. All of them are good, are in good standing, right? All of them ulul. We accept all their narrations. The problem will not be from the Sahaba, it will be from someone.
From the after.
And most probably it's not even the second layer, it will be the fourth or the fifth or the third.
Right? So is there no da'if hadith that has multiple riwayat?
There are hadiths that have multiple riwayat, and then what? Then they get accepted.
No, I mean one that's still da'if, even though there's multiple people.
Yeah, sometimes the hadiths come, like this is an example that would say, if you have someone who is blind but strong, and one who is handicapped but he can see, they can come together and cross the road, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But if you have two blinds, they cannot cross the road. Like if you have a narration by two, and we know that both are liars, it doesn't do any good, right? But you know that person from, for example, in Iraq is narrating a hadith, and the person in Sham narrating another hadith, but both hadiths have the same meaning, and both of those are da'if, right? They never met, and they have different shuyukh. So this means that they memorized right, right? And then
There
what?
has to be some sort of cooperation between them for it to be
Correlation.
Yeah, something that tells that they're not copying from each other,
Yeah.
right? If you know that they're not copying from each other or not even sharing like some of the shuyukh, then no, we say no that so they actually got it right this time, right?
Okay, so in the category where they say متفقين عليه.
Muttafaq alayh, this is muttafaq alayh, this is the highest rank of authentic hadith after Mutawatir.
What's the difference between Mutawatir and Muttafaq?
Muttafaq alayh is narrated by Bukhari and Muslim.
That's the only difference.
Yeah. Mutawatir, by the way, Mutawatir might not be narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. There's another thing. Because they didn't intend to include all the authentic hadith, right?
متفق عليه talking about Bukhari Muslim agreeing
Only,
on it?
yeah. Bukhari Muslim only. This is a terminology. Yeah, there's
Everyone's
Bukhari and
agreeing
Muslim.
on it, that's it?
Yeah, there's my reported by Bukhari and reported by Muslim. This is muttafaq
So
alayh.
every متفق عليه is in Riyadh Salihin, that means?
No, every muttafaq is in both Bukhari and Muslim.
Yeah, but isn't that Riyadh Salihin is
It's Nura Sahih doesn't include all the hadith that are muttafaq alayh.
why not?
Because it's
Just to exclude some for some reason?
no, because Nura Sahih actually addressing some topics, not all the topics.
I got you.
Okay, so just know that they say that, and this is a general ruling. The most authentic hadith is the hadith that is muttafaq alayh, that was reported by Bukhari and Muslim. Then what? We're not talking about mutawatir now. There's another thing. Like, to go from the beginning, when we talk about hadith, there's mutawatir, and there are ahad. Ahad means that reported by people, by individuals. Those individuals might be 5, 6, 7, 1. It doesn't matter, but it didn't reach the amount to be a mutawatir.
Depending on whoever's subjective opinion.
Yeah. Okay. We start this one, and then the highest of the authentic hadith is the muttafaq alayh, something that was reported by Bukhari and Muslim. Then what was reported by Bukhari alone. Then what was reported by Muslim. Then what followed the conditions that Bukhari put, or what follows Bukhari's criteria. Then what follows Muslim's criteria. Then what was deemed authentic or ruled authentic by other than the two Sheikh, Bukhari and Muslim. Those are levels. So now, if you have a hadith narrated by Bukhari only, that contradicts what was narrated by Bukhari and Muslim, and there is no way to harmonize or understand them together, then we go to the one that was narrated or reported by Bukhari and Muslim, because it's higher rank. Okay? Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
So I had the same question as the brother. So the hadith that Aisha radiallahu anha reported about the sunan of before Fajr, right? So,
Yeah.
so is it mutawatir?
No. Allahu A'lam. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's mutawatir or not.
So
Hadith, sorry?
The Prophet ﷺ didn't was not consistent with any of the nawafil more than the 2 rakats before Fajr.
So if a hadith Aisha radiallahu anha narrates, and then you will not have many narrators, right? In a sense, many people didn't share it, and that's the same question that I was asking. So, but we know that Aisha radiallahu anha was.
Okay. Okay. So when we say this hadith is not mutawatir, it doesn't mean that it's not acceptable. There's another thing. No, mutawatir, we're saying that it's 100%, no doubt in it at all. The hadith that's reported by individuals might be 99%, 98%, like A plus,
Widespread.
like A plus and A. Yeah.
Like somebody traveled to Sallam on an expedition, or
Yeah,
walked with him, or
Like imagine the Prophet ﷺ one time he was walking with one of the Sahabas and told him something, right? And this Sahabi reported it. It's still an authentic hadith, right? But again, and I told you the promise normally is not with the Sahabas, normally like 2 levels low, under the Sahaba, right? Again, imagine when the Prophet, something that was reported by many Sahabas means that the Prophet ﷺ gave it great care and said it many times that a lot of Sahaba memorize it, right? It's not, this is more important than something that he told one of the Sahaba, right? Okay, so, and you'll see the hadith that we want to mention, and even some of the hadith you will wonder, is that important? Yeah, it is that important. Okay, as I told you. By the way, the hadiths that are reported by individuals, some scholars say that okay, those hadiths, even though that are not mutawatir, they might lead to certainty with some conditions. Like some hadiths are not mutawatir, but the nation accepted them without any dispute.
Yeah.
Right? So we are certain now, like because this ummah doesn't agree upon something wrong. Okay? Like which by the way, the majority of the hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim, the vast majority of those hadiths were accepted by the scholars. And when I say scholars from every school of thought or school of knowledge. They don't argue about that. Most of the hadiths are accepted by them. We mentioned the hadith الأعمال بالنيات last time. Mentioned that it was one by like Umar and then Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Taymi and Al-Qam al-Waqas al-Laythi, and then after that it spread, right? Like 200 people narrated it. We know that this is an authentic hadith. We know that this is right. We know that the Prophet surely said that, right? But when we go with the criteria that we put for Mutawatir, no, it's not. It's not right.
So what if you have a hadith that's in Bukhari, two hadith in Bukhari, or two hadith in Muslim, and they contradict each other?
Okay.
And we can't harmonize between them.
So this is one way of harmonizing between the hadith. Like how you harmonize between the hadith, there's an actual, part of the knowledge of usul al-fiqh. And there are many things that you might say, okay, we want to follow this hadith and not that hadith. Some things depend on the narrator himself. Like for example, there was the hadith that the Prophet, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, who said that the Prophet got married when he was in a state of ihram. And this is an authentic hadith, right? And the other hadith that the Prophet said, no, a muhrim cannot marry or have or marry for himself or like marry his daughter to another person, right? And then Safiya, not Safiya, Astaghfirullah, the al-Mu'min that the Prophet was married, and that story said no, he was not muhrim at the time, right? So which one would you follow?
Follow the Prophet and the wife.
Why?
Because the two corroborates two.
No, because the wife was the one who the thing happened with.
Yeah,
She knows better, right? Ibn Abbas might have understood that, but what actually happened was the al-Mu'mineen. She knew that, right? It's her story. Right? It happened to her, so she knows better. So this one way of thing which hadith takes precedence, right?
So Ibn Abbas was just wrong in that. It was correctly narrated.
Yeah, he narrated. It's hadith sahih, and it's Ibn Abbas rather mentioned it, and the story is correct at the time of the Prophet's marriage, and where and when are correct. The only thing that he got wrong that he thought that he was in state of ihram at the time. You got?
I got it.
So that's those two hadiths contradict, but we know which one is correct. And as I told you, this is like a big branch of knowledge. Which one, when those hadiths contradicts, which one to follow? Because there's a lot of metrics as to which one to follow and which one not.
I found a couple of hadith that are talking about Abdullah ibn Mas'ud.
Okay. Let's conclude first, and جزاكم الله خير وصلى الله وسلم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم كثيرا والحمد لله رب العالمين.